Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Emma Fave, and usually around this time of year I like to keep things bright and light and airy, but I just got these brand new paints from Kiritaki in the mail. They are their Sumi colors and they're very dark and very moody, so I thought I would swatch them for you and then paint something dark and moody. So let's jump in and get started. Before we do that, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. Alright, let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, so these are the paints that we are going to be looking at today. They are from, I hope I say it right, Kiritaki. They are their Sumi colors and they all look black, but they all have an undertone of a different color and they're super moody and dark and very cool. So as you can see, they all look very dark and black. But we have Sumi red, Sumi yellow, Sumi green, Sumi blue, Sumi violet, and Sumi brown. So I thought I would start by just swatching them for you just because we want to see what they look like. And then we were going to paint something with the set. So let's start with our Sumi red. So the only other Kiritaki paints that I've ever had before are their metallics, and they were always really great to me. I really enjoyed them. So I haven't tried any other paints by them before. All right, this is really nice. It almost reminds me of like a perline maroon or something. And I'm gonna go as light as I can. Look at that. Ooh, that's really pretty. Oh my gosh, they're so nice. Okay, let's try the Sumi yellow, which if you mix yellow with black, essentially it's green. So I'm assuming this is going to be more on the green side. But I guess it has a bit of a yellow undertone. Oh, that's so my color. I love a dark and moody green. That's really pretty. Okay, let's try the Sumi green. So this is looks more like a bluey kind of green. Ooh, kind of like a perline green almost, which you guys know I love. So it's a bit of a cooler green, and then the Sumi yellow is just kind of like a warmer green. That's really pretty. All right, let's do Sumi blue. Which kind of looks, at first glance, like a Payne's gray. Which makes sense, because that's essentially what it is. It's like a black blue color. That's nice. All right, then let's do Sumi violet. It's kind of like a warm gray tone. Like the blue one is more of a cool gray, like a Payne's gray, and then this seems more like a warm gray color. And then last we have Sumi brown. Okay, it doesn't look too brown. More like just like another black. These are all just kind of like variations of blacks almost. But those are so pretty. And so moody and dark. Look at them. I really like the red and the yellow the best, I think. But those are really, really beautiful. Okay, so now I want to paint something. So recently I saw on Sarah Cray's Instagram, she was painting like these dark and moody landscapes as well. So I felt a little bit inspired by that, as well as these paints, just kind of painting something like that. So it may give off the same kind of vibes, but yeah, let's just get right into it and paint something dark and moody. Okay, so when I think of dark and moody, I also kind of think of like a forest. So I want to do kind of like a moody forest on this side of my paper. I don't want to do the whole thing, I don't think. So I have a mop brush here, and I also have my size 8 round, and then I also have my colors, obviously, and I'm painting in my Etchlab Cool Press Watercolor sketchbook. And let's just start. So I'm going to start with like a background, and like maybe have trees on either side. So I'm going to grab a little bit of like the blue, I think, just a tiny bit, just to kind of, oop, that's not a tiny bit, just to kind of see where I'm placing it. And I'm going to do like a rough border. And I'm using a mop brush just because I want to wet up a decent amount of the background, and it's just easier to do it quickly when you have a bigger kind of mop brush. Okay, so here we have our background sky. I might even, do I want to add other colors in here? No, we'll try and keep it with just this palette. And then bring it down here a bit. And I want to do like a lot of wet on wet. I wonder how these kind of like explode. Okay, so I'm gonna grab actually a bigger brush than my 8. Let's grab my size 12. And I want to start off with mostly this like bluish gray color. Kind of wish it was a bit more on the bluey side. Bluey. Every time I say bluey side, now I'm thinking of the show Bluey. Like I would actually like to mix this with indigo, I think, but I want to try and keep it lighter in the middle, I think. And then darker on the sides. So I'm just kind of moving that color around, keeping it darker up here, into the sides. Then I want to do some trees and stuff. I'm going to use the yellow, Sumi green-ish yellow color. And I'm just going to go on either side. Like that. Maybe have the ground kind of coming in that way. Maybe some of that red for the ground. And we're just keeping it really loose, obviously. Widen this a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my size 8 just to get a little bit more detailed strokes. Really love this Sumi or yellow color because it's just kind of almost like an olivey green type. So I want these like long trees, maybe a little bit lighter ones, like they're faded in the background here. So nice and light. I know it looks like such a mess right now. Hoping I can make it a little bit better. I'm going to grab some of that Sumi brown and kind of do some dark, maybe path. So far it just looks like a mess, but that's okay, right? Let's get some of that Sumi green color. Maybe we can have like bigger trees kind of coming in. One thing I saw Sarah do, a technique that I actually used recently in what's it called? My Patreon exclusive tutorial. I did an anemone, and you know all those little lines on like the really, really fine grooves in a petal? I used my, what's it called? My palette knife to kind of carve those out with on the paper. So I saw Sarah do that with her her landscape too, which looked pretty cool. So I might do that as well. I'll show you what I mean in just a second. Okay. You can see it kind of coming together, right? All right, so I have this palette knife here. And for really tiny branches or tiny, I'll show you when, or really tiny line details on something, you can use a palette knife to kind of carve it up. I've seen people do it with the back of their paintbrush, but this was just too big. So a palette knife is a great way to get these little lines, especially for like small branches and stuff. So you can just have kind of some branches come in like that. And the watercolor that's there will just kind of seep right into it and make it darker. But those tiny little fine lines that are really hard to get are really great to do with a palette knife. And you just got to be really kind of rigid with it. You don't want them to be like these straight, perfect lines. I'm going to try and do most of them. The background here. I'm going to try and do like mostly the trunks with paint, but these little lines will be good for branches. All right. So like, let's get the green. And just kind of, you can kind of go over some of the areas just so it seeps in a little bit. Makes it a little bit darker. Okay, and then we're going to wait for it to dry. And then we'll go and do another layer of darker, more structured lines that are not as blurred out. Okay, so let's let this dry quickly. Okay, so now that it's dry, obviously we need to do a lot more detail on top because it's all pretty blurred out. But see how you get that really light area because we use the least amount of paint towards the center and then it gets darker. We want to maintain that as we go on top. So trees that are in the far, like the background, they're going to be really, really light in color. So I'm going to take just a small amount. The only thing with this palette that doesn't suck, but it's kind of, you need a palette to kind of mix on. So I'm just going to grab one here. I'm going to grab some of that Sumi green just because I want to lighten it up so I can have some really light trees in the background. Okay, even lighter than this. So I'm just taking off some of that pigment. I'm just doing these really light washes of trees so it looks like they're kind of faded in the distance. Okay, then as we move closer to the sides, we're going to start making them just a little bit darker. So you're just grabbing more paint. These colors are so fun to use, these paints. I also don't want to overdo it with all the trees too. I don't want a ton and a ton of trees, but so I gotta make sure that there's a ground here. Maybe I'll get some brown. And just kind of do a little bit of dry brush to make it look like they're actually on some sort of ground back there. So I just don't have a lot of water or paint on my brush and I just kind of skim it across. Some of them are fading quite a bit. Maybe get the darker green. And then I want to make sure that the bottom here is blended out. So I'm just going to wet my brush a little bit and then just kind of blend out that bottom. And I'm just doing these long lines of trees. You can have some kind of in the background. I really like this so far. This is fun. All right. I wish the blue was a little bit more blue, if that makes sense, you know? I feel like it's just too gray, which I wish it was just more blue. Like it's kind of blue, but yeah, it's more on the Payne's gray kind of side, which is fine. I just feel like if I were to do this painting again, I'd maybe mix a little bit more like indigo with it or something. But I did want to just stick to this palette. I'm just blending out that bottom there. I like that. That looks so cool. And I never usually paint anything like this, so this is fun to try. So one thing, if you have shaky hands, this is actually a really great painting for you to do, just because you want your branches to be shaky and not perfect. So if you're someone who struggles with that, painting trees like this would be really great for you to practice. I know, like my arms right now, I went to the gym on Tuesday and it's Thursday right now, and my arms are so shaky. They hurt so bad right now. So this is actually really great for me of a painting to do, just because my arms are so shaky. Okay. That's really cool. Okay, I really like that. Just gonna do a couple more dark branches. Kind of coming over like that. Then I didn't really use the violet too much, so maybe I'll use some violet just in the ground here, because it's dark enough that it doesn't look like purple necessarily, but it gives off a nice kind of cooler vibe. So I'm trying to make the kind of path of the ground here come in on an angle. You know what I mean? So you have this like walking path down the center. So I'm coming from a higher point right down to the middle there. And again, doing that dry brush. So what to do a dry brush quickly, I don't have a lot of water on my brush. I dip it in a little bit because my paints are quite dry, and I'll like move it around in my paint, which is also kind of dry. And I'll start with the belly of my brush, like right on its side. And then I kind of lift a little bit. And if it's still like that's too wet, I could just dab it on my paper towel a bit. And I get more of a dry brush. You don't want a lot of water or paint. You just want it to be able to skim across the top to get that effect. And so I'm not even going to add any more color or water, or sorry, any more water, and I'm just going to go right over top to kind of get that dry brush effect. I like that. I'm going to add a little bit more just to the edges here. So when it's too dry, you can just kind of add a little bit more. I really like that. That's so crazy. I've never painted something like this that I've really liked before. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit of that brown, and I'm just going to do like little bits of grass, maybe like some shrubbery, just so it looks like there's some plants or something. A little bit more texture on the path, although this is still kind of wet, so it's blending out more than I'd like it to. I could just wait, but I'm impatient. I don't know, I like it. And this is not typically a nice spring picture, but this is a lot of fun to do. Do a little bit more like rocks and stuff by the base of the trees. Okay, I think I need to stop before I continue anymore. But yeah, there we go. I really like that. That turned out so well, and these paints are so much fun. So definitely check them out if you're interested in some dark and moody paints. I really hope you guys enjoyed that little tutorial, and yeah, that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.